All right, I'm going to number them 1 through 8, but they aren't numbered in importance. I think they're equally important. And I'll start off with the number, and then I'll talk about each one kind of as I go. And then at the end, I'll summarize all 8 of them. But again, these are 8 tips to make 2023 your best year yet. Number 1, set a goal to produce at least 10% more in 2023 than you did in 2022. So I want you to grow by double-digit percentage growth. And of course, double-digit percentage growth would mean 10% or more. If it was 9%, that'd be a single digit. But we want you to grow by 10% or more. The 10% is not meant to be a cap. You can grow more than that. We want you to have at least 10% growth in 2023 than you did in 2022. And let me put kind of a begin with the end in mind context here, a Stephen Covey context. If you grow 10% a year, and you continue to do that each and every year, just 10%, if you grow 10% a year, in less than 7 years, your practice will double. In less than 10 years, 7 years, your practice will double. It's actually 6.8 years is the exact math calculation. So think about that for a minute. If you have $1 million practice now, and I'll just use a round number of $1 million. If you had $1 million practice now, and you grow at least 10% a year, then in 6.8 years, you now have a $2 million practice. So certainly from a financial perspective, growth is a very positive occurrence, very positive reality. But another way to think about it is growth also allows you to help more people in your community enjoy great oral health.
Yes.
So we can often drive this with a more noble cause. We want to help more people have great oral health. So another way we can kind of frame the idea of growing, especially when we're talking to our team members. Practices are either growing or they're dying, Aaron. Now, one might say, well, Gary, isn't there a third choice, staying the same? Well, if you're staying the same today, where we have double-digit percentage inflation, you're actually going backwards because of the effect of inflation. You're going backward. Everything we buy today in a dental office is more expensive because of inflation. And so if you're staying the same, you're going backwards. So given the choice of growing or dying, it's a pretty easy choice for me. We want to grow. So number 1, set a goal to produce at least 10% or more in 2023 than you did in 2022. Now, the other steps will help you achieve that goal, but I wanted to start kind of with the begin and the end in mind. Set that goal. The second tip number 2, take steps in 2023 to reduce your insurance dependence. Now, let me give you a context for that. From the dawning of time, everything we've learned about accounting in dentistry, bookkeeping and accounting, when we look at what our biggest expense category is, traditionally, we have been taught to believe that our biggest expense category is staff wages by percentage. That's your biggest expense category. Traditionally, for example, we have friends at the ADCPA, the Academy of Dental CPAs. They've often been guests on the podcast. And they're authorities in this. And they've often said that, doctor, if you can keep your staff wages at 28% or less, in other words, 28% or less of your revenue, of your income, then you're keeping that expense category in line at 28% or less.
Yes.
But from this moment forward, I want you to think of your insurance adjustments, the difference between your usual fee and your contracted fee. I want you to think of that as a marketing expense. Why? Because you're paying the insurance company to provide you patients. You're paying Delta to provide you patients. I'll use Delta because they are the 5,000-pound bully gorilla. So let's use Delta. And that difference between your usual fee and your contracted fee, you need to look at that as a marketing expense. Now, it'll never show up in your profit and loss statement as a marketing expense because you're not actually writing a check for it. However, it's more insidious. Delta takes the money before you ever got it. So it's even worse. So your single biggest expense, and Naren, what do we see today? I'll check your math on this, Naren, because yes. I know you get to see this with your clients and I get to see it with my coaching clients. What do you typically see today as the discount in a PPO fee schedule the difference between a dentist's usual fee and their contract fee? What percent is the discount when you notice this?
Yeah, I see. Of course, these numbers have been getting higher and higher. I know when you resigned, with Life Smiles, 15 years ago, the discount was around 35%. Today, it's 45 to 50%. In some states, it's even 57%. In other words, almost 2/3 of what the dentist is producing goes to the insurance companies in the form of a write-off.
To be conservative, I would say that the average discount today is 45 to 50. You're right.
I agree.
I've seen as high as 60 discount.
Yes.
60% haircut.
Yes.
But average of 45 to 50. And so last time I checked my math, 45% was higher than 28%, which is the budget for your wages, staff wages. So actually your biggest expense category is not staff wages. It's the amount of money we're handing to the dental insurance companies to line the pockets of the fat cats.
Yes.
And Darren, I want to do something for our listeners. We recorded a podcast episode earlier on the Thriving Dentist Show of the 6 steps to successfully reduce insurance dependence. Let's put that in the show notes so that any of our listeners can grab that episode and take action on it. But take steps to reduce your insurance dependence. It's the single most important strategic decision you could make. Now, remember, you don't have to go all the way to fee-for-service to see significant benefits to your practice. Anytime we drop a plan, we're improving. But if your goal is to go all the way to fee-for-service, then I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader.
Gary, one thing I want to add is, I know you and I help a lot of clients reduce their insurance dependence and, of course, replace Delta and the PPO plans with Google. On the other side, they are spending 1% of what they collect on marketing if they work with Google, especially SEO type Google. Google SEO versus 45 to 50%. So there are alternatives. It's not like you're stuck and this is the only choice.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that reducing insurance dependence, reducing that number from 45 to 50% to possibly even 1% would be good for you in 2023.
Well, it's going to absolutely affect your bottom line in a positive way. Most of my coaching clients, the only money they spend on marketing is organic SEO. It's a campaign through your firm, Naren, through Equa, to do organic search engine optimization. And very often, depending on the size of the practice, the amount that they're spending, can even be less than 1% of their revenue. It depends on the size of the practice, but it can be less than 1% of their revenue. Great way to really enhance your bottom line for sure. Number 3. So tip number 3, to make 2023 your best year yet, start tracking your call conversion percentage. Now, what in the world is call conversion? Call conversion may be one of the most important KPIs for you to measure in your practice. And what that is what percent of a phone call that comes in from a potential new patient ends up booking a new patient appointment, ends up scheduling a new patient appointment. Call conversion. If you don't know what your call conversion is, you're really at the mercy of just throwing, darts against the wall when it comes to your marketing, because you may think, hey, I need more new patients. And you might think, well, the only way I can get new patients is spend more money on marketing. But the real issue may be that you're getting plenty of phone calls from potential new patients, but you're not converting them to appointments. And I want to benchmark this for you. So we've benchmarked this, having studied this now across hundreds of practices. A call conversion percentage of 70% or higher is an A on the report card. That means 7 out of 10 potential new patients end up booking an appointment in your practice. 70% or more is an A. Of course, you can get higher than that, but 70% or more is an A. 60 to 70 is a B. The closer you are to 70, it's more like a B plus. The closer you are to 60, more like B minus. 50 to 60 is a C. Same thing there. Closer you are to 60, it's more like a C plus. Closer you are to 50, more like C minus. And anything less than 50 is failing. So now you have a way to measure it, and now you can track it. And if you don't track this, it's kind of like trying to diagnose a patient without any records. You don't have the information you need to make good decisions. Do you need more new phone calls? Or are you getting enough phone calls, but you need to convert them? Those are different problems to solve. And if you start tracking your call conversion percentage, you're going to be on your way to improving that and to consistently getting A or higher, in your call conversion percentage. So tip number 3, start tracking your call conversion percentage. Now, Naren, in many practices don't really have the means of tracking that. Would that be your perspective?
Absolutely, Gary. I think two stats I want to throw out. One is the average practice only converts 1 out of 3 new patient calls. At least that's what I've seen from studies. And second is, I think
that would be 33%.
33%.
Which again, on the report card, where's that?
F, like a
That's
big
failing.
F. Yeah, it's an F.
And
you are correct. I think less than 5% of the practices actually do track the call conversion rate. And that's a problem, because if you don't know how well you are doing, or if your team doesn't know how well they're doing, they cannot improve it. Yeah. And a lot of times, like, doctors are, blown away, especially when we start this process. Like, one client, a mutual client of ours, I've known him for 10 years. He thought everything was amazing, and he thought they're converting like 70, 80%. When we started tracking, it was 37%. And what happens is humans justify all the things that don't work out. So the team was, saying, oh yeah, they're all bad patients. So that's why we didn't even think of them as, we didn't convert it, or they're bad, so we turn them away. But the minute we started recording these calls and started playing it to the doctor, they're like, no, they are excellent patients, just because they asked the wrong question or they had the wrong
they're calling
tone.
Looking for a dentist. I think on a very broad level,
yes.
They represent a potential new patient.
Exactly.
You're exactly right. Well, let's go to tip number 4. This is kind of more tactical, but the tactical stuff can produce great results in your practice. Tip number 4 to make 2023 your best year yet: designate a specific doctor scheduling coordinator. I really like to divide duties administratively. I like to have a doctor scheduling coordinator and a hygiene scheduling coordinator, different individuals in your practice. Now, anybody administratively can make appointments in your practice, but I need someone that's accountable and responsible to that task. And having a specific team member that's accountable and responsible for it and is engineering it to make it happen and is proactive will make a radical difference in your practice. If everyone's doing it, Naren, oftentimes no one's doing it. And I don't mean that to be mean-spirited. It's just that it's human nature. We need someone to quarterback that project. So a designated doctor scheduling coordinator with a very specific daily doctor production goal where they schedule to that goal can make a massive difference in your practice. So it's more of a schedule by design instead of a schedule by chance. That's the best way to think about that. Mm-hmm. In the same spirit, tip number 5, designate a specific hygiene scheduling coordinator. Hygiene is a very important part of a thriving practice. And we want to fill as many of our available hygiene appointments as possible. In fact, the goal is to fill at least 92% or more of our available hygiene appointments. That's an A on the report card for the hygiene scheduling coordinator. But if I don't have someone that's in charge of it, someone that's quarterbacking it, someone that's accountable for it, it typically will not be achieved because it's just one of those things they get around to if they can. But if I've got someone that's responsible for it, even to the point of saying to your hygiene scheduling coordinator, we're going to do an annual review of your performance. We do that with all team members. And when we do that, the number 1 factor we're going to look at is your success at putting butts in the seat in hygiene. And the goal is 92% or more of the available hygiene appointments. And if you do that well, then you're going to get a very good review. Now, you have many other responsibilities. And if you do everything else well, but you fail at filling hygiene, then you're not going to get a good review. And again, I don't mean that to be mean-spirited. It's just letting them know what the priorities are. Number 6, build a team culture of adding same-day dentistry, where it's part of your team culture. where it's something that literally you make happen every day. Let's go back to goal number 1, grow at least 10% a year. Naren, getting really skilled at adding same-day dentistry by itself can help you get that 10% growth by itself.
100%.
Now, same-day dentistry has 2 different meanings in dentistry. One relates to CAD/CAM or CEREC dentistry, and same-day in that context refers to a one-visit crown where you can have the tooth prepared and the final crown presented in one visit, same day. I'm not using that context here. What I mean by same-day dentistry is adding treatment to your schedule today based on people we're already seeing in our schedule. So it might be a patient in hygiene that is here to have their teeth cleaned today, but they have an unscheduled treatment plan of fillings in the upper left. And we have an opportunity to move them at the end of the hygiene appointment over to the doctor's side and do those fillings for them today. Help that patient treat it conservatively before it becomes something more complicated. Maybe utilize some dental insurance benefits that they have. And maybe best of all, save a trip to your office. Naren, time, it's my perspective that time is everyone's most precious commodity. They don't make any more of it.
Yes. Yes.
You get what you get in terms of time. And so when we can save people time, that's a tremendous benefit for everyone. It's a pretty easy pitch. Hey, George, I know the doctor suggested fillings for you on the upper left, and those fillings aren't going to get any better on their own. They have a way of, continuing with the decay. And if you wait till it hurts, it may be that we can't just replace them with new fillings. We may end up having to do a root canal and crown. To avoid that possibility, I'd recommend you get these fillings taken care of as soon as you can. Hey, we could actually do it for you today. If you end your hygiene appointment, we can move you over here and get those fillings taken care of for you. And you can avoid future problems, and we'll save you a trip. Anyway, it's getting a whole culture built around that same-day dentistry. Tip number 7, set a goal of getting 10 or more new Google reviews each month.
I love that, Gary. I love that.
I knew you'd like this one. Right? Google won't tell us their ranking algorithm, but they do give us clues. And one of the clues they've told us is that Google reviews are in the top 5 criteria they use when creating their ranking algorithm. And specifically, they're interested in 3 things. The sheer number of reviews you have, the more the better. That's the first criteria. Number 2, the velocity of those reviews. What that means is how frequently is a new review coming in. If you have reviews coming in frequently, you're meeting the velocity element of that criteria. And number 3, the character of the reviews. The character refers to the type of review that was left. Someone can write you a 5-star review and not write anything, and that's still a 5-star review and in some ways useful.
Yes.
Another option would be that they write a 5-star review, give you a 5-star review, and they write 2 words: great office. Now that's better than the first one, but it still doesn't provide a lot of texture. What Google means by character, they're looking for long format narrative reviews. They're looking for multiple sentences where the patient's singing your praises, because all those words end up being used as part of search, and they enhance your results. But they're looking for long-term narrative reviews. So I want to encourage you to set a goal of getting 10 or more new Google reviews each month. It'll radically impact your marketing in a positive way. Think about that. Even if they were just to hit 10, Naren, if they did that for a year, 10 a month, the end of the year, we've just added 120 reviews to whatever you started with. And it changes your profile when it comes to Google by adding reviews. We have clients that are multiplying that result. They're getting 30, 40 new Google reviews a month. But we believe that any office should be able to get 10 new Google reviews. That's basically 1 every other day.
Yes.
Depends how many days a week you're working, but basically 1 every other day. And if you have some intention around this, you should be able to achieve that. All right, finally, tip number 8, maybe the most important one. If you want to make 2023 your best year yet, doctor, I want you to have a never-ending look for opportunities to recognize and praise your team members. Recognize and praise your team members. I want you to embrace a culture of appreciation and look for opportunities to recognize and praise your team members. There's some of that goes on in dentistry today, but we could do a lot more of that. And I'm going to be very specific with you. The more detailed you can be when giving praise, the better. We could say, Susan, you did a good job today. And that has a warm, fuzzy feeling. And it evaporates quickly, though. But instead, if you're able to say hypothetically, let's say Susan's an assistant and she took a great set of x-rays for you today that gave you all on a patient that might have been difficult to do that with. You could say to Susan, those x-rays you took today for Gary are fantastic. You got all the information I need. Way to go. And by the way, say that in front of the patient. Here's a simple axiom to remember. Compliment in public, correct in private. Compliment in public, correct in private. And I want you to become a champion of this and look for opportunities and do it regularly, because the more you compliment and praise your team, the more you catch them doing good things, the more they're going to do more good things in your practice. And you cannot abuse this. You cannot overdo it. Instead, you can make the mistake of going the other way, where team members say, well, it'd sure be nice to hear some appreciation every once in a while. And we want to avoid that. Think of praise and appreciation as kind of like our bank, our bank balance. We have to make deposits in the bank before we make withdrawals. Well, the same thing here. The deposits that you make are when we praise and compliment our team members. The withdrawals are when we need to correct. And there may be times where we need to correct. But if you have enough deposits in the bank before you make the withdrawal, then you can make the withdrawal. Well, the same thing happens here. So let me recap here. Here's the 8 tips to make 2023 your best year yet. Tip number 1, set a goal to produce at least 10% more in 2023 than you did in 2022. Tip number 2, take steps now to reduce your insurance dependence. Tip 3, start tracking your call conversion percentage. Data never lies. Start getting that data. Tip number 4, designate a specific doctor scheduling coordinator. Tip number 5, in the same way, designate a specific hygiene scheduling coordinator. Tip number 6, build a team culture of adding same-day dentistry. A little sidebar on that. I've made it my life's work to study world-class practices. World-class practices finish the day at the end of the day above where they started in the morning huddle 80% of the time. So 80% of the time they add to their production during the day. What do average practices do? They go backwards because of cancellations and no-shows. Well, I like to think that all of our listeners to the Thriving Dentist Show are world-class practices. So you can use that as a benchmark to measure your performance. Tip number 7, set a goal of getting 10 or more new Google reviews each month. And finally, tip number 8, look for opportunities to recognize and praise your team members regularly. Well, there's a bit of a roadmap to follow to make 2023 your best year yet.